So this is the Heel to the Face podcast. Brandon, I have two things. You tell me which one is true. In 1993, Jerry the King Lawler was indicted for sexually abusing a minor and suspended from the WWF for about 2 months. Or during the WrestleMania 7 buildup between Sergeant Slaughter and Hulk Hogan, future Minnesota Governor Jesse the Body Ventura suggested that they actually burn an American flag on television. Which one is true?
Jerry the King Lawler, he's a creep.
Trick question. They're both true. That and much, much more. The Heel to Face podcast starts right now.
So silence your cell phones. Hold your applause. And tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So the Heel to Face podcast is on the air. I am K-Rock Jared. That's where you can find me on social media. I am joined with Brandon the Icebreaker Clements. You can find him on social media at Icebreaker21 as we move into our first episode for the month of June. A lot to get to this week. A lot of stuff going on in the world of wrestling. So without further ado, let's get things started. And I think where I want to get things started this week is the WWE has come up with the network for absolutely free. They debuted a brand new show on Monday night called Raw Talk, which is great for myself because I just watched 20 minutes of Raw Talk and it was like watching Monday Night Raw, catching me up on everything that I missed. So the WWE Network free, how are they going to promote that now, Brandon? Because before when they had pay-per-view, they'd say exclusively on the WWE Network, but that's technically not true now because some of these people who might have the free service might be a little disappointed to find that you're not going to get the new pay-per-views. And more importantly, who does this free network, I guess, appeal to?
I don't think it appeals to anybody. I think what you need to do is you need to have it as either you do it one of two ways. You do it as part of your WWE Network subscription, or you do it exclusively on WWE.com. I don't like this whole free version of WWE Network. I just think it's wacky. I didn't see Raw Talk. You said you did, so I mean, was it? What do you think of it? Was it decent?
Well, and that's the problem here, I guess, with this free version is, so we've had Raw Talk before. We've had SmackDown Talk, Talkin' Smack. We've had these post-shows and pre-shows. Remember SmackDown and Raw, when the network started, had both a pre- and post-show. But eventually those things kind of fizzled out. They stopped having that. And the problem with this network now is if this is like pretty much your staple show to having the WWE free version of the network, what are they going to do when essentially they get rid of it? Or they pretty much have to keep this going, even if people aren't as much interested in this Raw Talk in the future, because they've proven that they weren't really interested in the previous versions of Raw Talk or Talking Smack. Talking Smack actually had a lot of interest, and still that was dropped. But in the end, that's really your only flagship show on this free version of the network. Everything else, like you said, is just stuff that is just off YouTube. I mean, they're playing like The Bump. They're playing some Table for Threes. But it's a lot of stuff that you could pretty much just find on YouTube. I don't know if it's WWE Network trying to disassociate people from just watching stuff for free on YouTube and being all-encompassing and maybe getting the network and maybe teasing them with the free version of the network only to find that when the pay-per-view starts, they're blocked out, so they still have to pay, encouraging them to then pay for the network. But one thing they have announced is the free version of WWE Network, or the free 30-day trial of the paid version of WWE Network, is no longer in existence. So you have the free WWE Network and you have the paid WWE Network, no more free trials. So maybe that's kind of what this free network is. It's literally saying no more free pay-per-views. If you want to watch this stuff on the network for free, here you go. But when you want to watch the pay-per-views, you got to pay for them.
Yeah, I think it's good on WWE's, and from that point of view, I think that's a good idea. I think it kind of you put the line in the water, and hoping that free thing somebody attract, you get enough people to attract to it, and then they see that the pay-per-view's cut out, then they're like, oh crap, well, you know what, I'm on the hook now. Let me go get let me pay the $9.99 and watch the pay-per-view. I think it's good from that aspect. I want to kind of take a step back and say I think you're right with the whole encompassing it into one thing instead of being on YouTube and things like that. So I have to agree with you 110%. I think that's what WWE's going for.
Yeah, I mean, when you say though, like who could go for free? It's just pretty much the people who've been watching stuff on YouTube to begin with, because there was this talk of like two different tiers of the WWE Network. There was supposed to be like a $9.99 and then a $14.99. The $9.99 and the $14.99 would both have the pay-per-view events, but that the $14.99 might have more independent wrestling, more, different events outside of WWE. And I can understand that because you have people like myself who might not pay the $15, who might not pay the extra $5, who might just stick with the regular network. But to me, without pay-per-views, the network is worthless. I mean, I go back and I watch old pay-per-views, which essentially only some are going to be on the free version, but for the most part, that's also a paid subscription service. But for the live content, if it's not for the events themselves, I probably wouldn't have the network anymore. If they got rid of all the events and it was really even just archive footage, even if it was just old pay-per-views, I might get rid of the network because there's so many other places to watch old pay-per-views. How often do I really watch them? How often do I watch their shows? And again, the shows can all be found at other places, YouTube, online, torrent sites, stuff like that. But it's really the live events that get me to pay the $9.99 a month. So without that, personally, I mean, not really interested in this free. It's really just YouTube all in one area where you no longer have to search around for videos. You get them all in one spot.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree 100%. If there wasn't the pay-per-views, like the NXT takeovers, any of that stuff, I probably wouldn't have the network because the archive footage, like you said, it's just you can find it anywhere. So I mean, you got to keep the pay-per-views on there if you want to keep me as a subscriber. That's just how I look at it.
So keeping on WWE, this past week on NXT, what we thought pretty much right from the get-go, right from, I think, within a week's time of the big releases about a month and a half ago, we thought this Drake Maverick thing was a work, and it indeed was. He signed a contract on NXT with Triple H. What do you make of the fact that he had those vignettes going out there with EC3, kind of like they were going to do their own little thing, EC3 himself and some other people, and as Spud, Rockstar Spud, now you see that was not true at all.
Yeah, I mean, just yesterday I was watching stuff like on the internet wrestling community, like all these different websites that they were like showing like screenshots of like a promo for an upcoming Impact show, and they're like, oh, there's Drake Maverick, and then like you see all the comments. People are like, oh, I guess that means we don't have to watch NXT tonight because he's not gonna win. He's gonna be let go anyways. So, and here's the thing, with all the vignettes and everything with EC3 out there as well, then if you look at his Twitter handle, it says Spud, which obviously it's an ode to Rockstar Spud, what he's known for before his days in WWE. So it was all kind of like. It was I would call it a little bit of a swerve. I wouldn't say it was an ultimate swerve by any means, but it was cool because I wasn't really expecting it at the end of the night. Watching the end of the show, you see him standing up there by the the stage on the stage there where you enter, and you see Triple H come in, and you see Triple H has got something in his hand there, and then I'm like, all right, well I guess he's getting the contract then, and then they do the whole thing, and it's funny because Morrow was like, I don't know, is that a contract? And then I think Beth Phoenix was like, yeah, I think by the reaction, I think it is. But if you listen to the telecast closely, Triple H walks up, hands it to him, and says, "You've earned this." So I already knew right as soon as he was walking out with it, I'm like, all right, the gig's up. He's got a contract. Do you think this was a complete work all the way around, or do you think it was Drake Maverick got so much love on social media that WWE just was like, you know what? We can probably roll with this and keep him on for a little longer.
It's tough to wonder that. I at least say if it wasn't a work from the get-go, that it became a work pretty soon on there after the release. The question is, was that video that he put out there a work? Was that video pretty much? I think he was re-signed as soon as that video came out. Whether that video was a work and then he was never released to begin with, or if he was literally re-signed like the day after that video, is the question. Is that video a work? If we find out if that video was the work, then it was a work the whole time. But if we find out that video was true, I think he pretty much got re-signed right after that video.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, I don't think they drug it out as long as they did. I think this was something we knew, obviously, a few weeks into that cruiserweight tournament. I think it was true that at that point it wasn't he just signed the contract on Wednesday night. It was he signed the contract pretty much either the day after that video or that video was a workout to begin with. But that's good with wrestling, though. We are sitting here debating whether something is a work, and that's good. We need more stuff like that. More wonder.
And speaking of WWE programming, we were just talking before recording here. There's a lot of people that are divided about the Jeff Hardy situation, where Jeff Hardy on SmackDown this past week, they portrayed him initially where he was, quote unquote, he was drinking and driving and he hit Elias, which come to find out later he wasn't. They did a test or whatever and said that he wasn't drinking or anything like that. And to me, they haven't said it, but to me, Sheamus, this is the whole Sheamus thing. I think Sheamus set this whole thing up. There's this issue with Sheamus and Jeff Hardy. I think Sheamus has just been, the way he's portrayed it for last month, at least handful of weeks. He's just not a fan of Jeff Hardy, and then they're building this rivalry. So I think Sheamus was involved with it, and we'll see how everything turns out. But I think they're going to build something into a decent storyline. Now the problem that people have is with Jeff Hardy's real life issues. Do you think this is something that they shouldn't have done or should have done? I want to see what you say first, because I did talk to some people on the Twitterverse, and it's very divided. I want to get your thoughts though.
Well, I personally have no problem with it, and this is kind of one of those arguments that people are defending and wanting the WWE Attitude Era back so much, and they're so fond of it. But are you fond of it? Because if you have a problem with this storyline, then you didn't really like the Attitude Era. To be honest with you, it's storylines like this that are probably the only things from the Attitude Era that I really am nostalgic for. I'm not really nostalgic for the women's division being completely useless or just the gratuitousness, like the Cleaver Beavage character, with Headbanger Mosh and stupid stuff like that. I'm not into the Attitude Era when it comes to just gratuitous sex and gratuitous cursing and just stuff that doesn't add to the storyline. What I liked about the Attitude Era that a lot of people liked is that realism, is that, exactly what we're seeing with Jeff Hardy. Now, if Jeff Hardy wrote off on this and was perfectly fine with this, then I have no problem with it at all. So to be honest with you, this harkens back to the Attitude Era. This harkens to the fact that Jeff Hardy's okay with it. I don't really understand what people see the problem. If they see a problem with this, is what they're saying is that they do not want any aspects of the Attitude Era to pretty much ever return, because this is probably the lighter end of the Attitude Era. This is probably the only thing in the Attitude Era that is not ridiculous. It is ridiculous in a way, but of all the things of the Attitude Era, this is probably the most compelling. If you say I want the Attitude Era to return, and I don't want the Jeff Hardy, the taking advantage of people's, real life drug addictions return, then what are you saying? That you want like women wrestling in mud again? Which one is it? Because
and then here's the thing, just to jump on that, I was being respectful. You want to be, especially in times that we're going through right now in the world, you want to be respectful to people's opinions and everything like that. So I definitely disagreed with some other comments that were on social media, but we do it in a respectful manner. It was just a nice discussion between wrestling fans. I'm on your side. Why is there an issue with it being a little edgy? If you're all about the Attitude Era, this kind of goes back to the Attitude Era style, but you're kind of contradicting yourself. And of course, if Jeff Hardy signed off on it, then I am completely on board, because he wouldn't have signed, he wouldn't have done the storyline regardless if he didn't sign off on it. And then the little back and forth I got on social media was, well, he could have said no. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, he could have said no, and what's going to happen? They're going to fire him? He cares. He'll go to AEW. He'll go be with his brother. He doesn't care.
I think if he would have said no, they wouldn't have been fired. That's the thing. That's when you get to these kind of storylines too. As I guess I'll respect WWE in a little way. I would assume that they have just enough respect that if he did say no, that he wasn't held up, against the wall on this. I don't think that WWE really said you're going to be participating in this controversial storyline and you're going to do whether you're comfortable or not. And if you're not comfortable, you're out the door. I don't think that at all. I think he must have signed off.
That's the vibe I got from just kind of seeing things on social media. People have their opinions, and that's fine. We all have our own opinions on things, and I agree with you. if he's doing the storyline, number one, he signed off on it. Number two, he wasn't like pushed against the wall like you said and said you have to do this or you're gone. Because here's the thing, once again, if he, he can pretty much, do as he kind of wants at this point, where WWE can't really hold. They're not going to hold it. They're not going to be like, oh, you have to do these things. He can just say, no, let me go. I'll go to AEW. I don't care. He's going to have opportunities outside of WWE. So he definitely signed off on this. I don't see where there was any gray area for me. He definitely signed off on this, and I think it's kind of bringing some cool, throwback, era into it, the Attitude Era. So some people
it wasn't even that Attitude Era, really, if you want to talk about like kind of this angle. Chris Jericho and CM Punk went this angle before WrestleMania 28 in their championship match, where CM Punk is a straight edge, and Chris Jericho's kind of pretty much saying he's a straight edge because his family had a problem with alcohol, and I remember him smashing the Jack Daniels bottle over CM Punk's face. Like, that kind of stuff took place not even all the way back to the Attitude Era. We're talking 2012. So to be honest with you, it's probably not that controversial, and if it ends up being, where it's not him being drunk and it's him being set up by Sheamus, that just kind of just heightens their storyline. So right now I don't see any part of it, but keeping on the controversy, I want to get your take on the world of, obviously what's going on in the world is we don't need to talk about it here, but some people do feel like talking about it, I guess, on Twitter. Linda Hogan, for example, sent out a tweet that, pretty much took one side or the other. Nick Hogan, actually, her son, put out a tweet as well that pretty much says, we're on the side of law and order, and anyone who's protesting or violently protesting, you're nothing but, animals or criminals or thugs or whatever the terminology that people are using out there, pretty much, and being against the protesters and seeming more or less if one side's racist and one side's anti-racist, they're leaning towards more the racist side. You can go out there and look up their tweet, if you want. I don't have it in front of me, but it's pretty much just taking sides. And Tony Khan, and we know AEW, how they're this all-inclusive. They're obviously, if you saw AEW this past week, they're out in the front of it. They're definitely, even if WWE never said anything, they would still have probably come out and defended. They take pride in the fact that they have openly gay wrestlers and transgender wrestlers, and they're a pretty inclusive environment. So Tony Khan sent out this tweet that pretty much said, well, congratulations, Linda, just like your husband. I don't know who she's referring to there, because last I remember Hulk Hogan and Linda Hogan were not married. But she said, just like your husband, you are now banned from all AEW events. Now, I'm not defending what Linda Hogan said, but personally, I found it kind of childish and kind of reaching for straws for Tony Khan to even respond.
Yeah, I agree with you with that. I think Tony Khan should have left it alone. I mean, I know everybody's entitled to their opinion, whether we agree with it or not. People have their opinions. So Tony Khan, I think he should have just kind of kept his tweets to himself, so to speak. I wouldn't have said anything, because I think what happened we'll just take a step over to the other side with Hulk Hogan, with his comments and how AEW is as a whole. I don't see that.
Hulk Hogan hasn't said anything recently about any of this. This isn't, the banning, I guess, of Hulk Hogan that we found out through this tweet pretty much says that going back, years and years and years ago, the whole Gawker thing, that is essentially why he's been banned from AEW. So we learned he's been banned from AEW this whole time. Yeah. And to me, he was banned from AEW, but we don't know about it. So it's Tony Khan trying to get a little bit of attention, I think, to put somebody like Hulk Hogan's name in his mouth and relate it to his company when they weren't related at all. It pretty much if we tried to get some heat for this podcast, it would just be like, you know what? You guys don't know this at home, but Stone Cold Steve Austin is banned from ever being on this podcast. And it'd be like, well, what? Why? Like, Stone Cold, what do you have with Stone Cold Steve Austin? You have no relation with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, like, you're using that person's name to kind of get more publicity. I'm not necessarily trying to go too far with the Tony Khan thing and getting publicity, but yeah, like Hulk Hogan hasn't said anything recently and was not coming to your company. So you literally just kind of went out there and put Hulk Hogan's name in your mouth with association of AEW when there was never an association before.
You didn't need to do it, because AEW is doing fine without even having that comment and anything like that. Because as you can see, if you look at Wednesday nights, AEW is kicking NXT's rear end. I mean, that's just the whole deal. I mean, Dynamite, it's just been it's a dynamite show, so to speak. It's been every week, it's been really good. So you don't need to take that step further to get more publicity. You don't need to do it, because Dynamite and AEW have been over, and I think I think they're doing a better job, and we've talked about this on numerous episodes, that they're doing a better job with this whole pandemic, doing their shows better than WWE has.
So, speaking of AEW Fighter Fest, it has been announced that it will be July 1st and July 8th. As of right now, July 8th is still scheduled to be a Dynamite taping from Rochester, New York, rescheduled from March. What percentage do you think that we're going to Rochester on July 8th for Night 2 of Fighter Fest? What percentage would you say that is going to come true?
12%.
12%. That's probably true. So it looks like this event's going to get rescheduled for a second time.
Yeah. For sure. It's absolutely getting canned. I'm pretty sure. Obviously it's still on the calendar, but I think give it about a week or two. Once we get real close to the end of the month, you're going to see AEW, say, hey, you know what? We're going to reschedule the Rochester event at a later date to be announced.
Well, do you like the fact? So this is like the second or third time that they've done this. Well, it's the second time they've done this. They tried to do it back in March with making a pay-per-view War Games kind of free TV. They've already done it before with Bash at the Beach. Now they're doing it with Fighter Fest. Do you like this idea of having like pay-per-views replacing a weekly version of the television show every so often?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I like it because it's different. It spices things up a little bit. And even if you're a casual AEW fan, you hear, oh, Fighter Fest, AEW presents Fighter Fest. Oh, they're doing it on TV instead of pay-per-view. Sweet, I'm gonna watch. I think it's great. I mean, you don't want to do it all the time, of course, but if you do it every couple months, you throw one in there just to spice things up. I say roll it. I think it's a great idea.
And it saves them on a week of writing as well, for the fact that those 2 weeks now are just going to be pay-per-views, so you don't have to write both the pay-per-view and the weekly show.
Yeah.
It'd be essentially like if Monday Night Raw was replaced by a pay-per-view, every so often. And we just completely skip over Monday Night Raw, replace it with a pay-per-view, and that's a whole different week of storylines they wouldn't have to write.
Exactly.
I always thought that'd be kind of cool, and not necessarily replacing Monday Night Raw being on free TV, but, if the pay-per-views were essentially on Monday nights, and that was a week that Raw wasn't on, that kind of thing. I just thought it would keep the storylines a little bit fresher because, as we learned with the real world of soap operas, they're on every single day. And when you're on every single day versus a show that Game of Thrones or, any of these HBO shows that are on maybe 8 or 9 episodes, you obviously see the difference between writing those versus writing something every day. Stories get, are not as fresh. I mean, we see that with WWE. They have to write on the fly because they're literally writing new episodes every single day that, storylines don't always pan out perfectly. Things have to be changed at the last minute because some people can't make it to the shows that they're scheduled in for. So any way that you can, like AEW here, just remove 2 episodes of Dynamite.
I want to add to that. Speaking of that, speaking of changing the writing a little bit, I read before the broadcast, before our show today, that Matt Riddle was kind of it was kind of a pandemic call-up because they were going to have him and Pete Dunne in the storyline with Indush. It's like what the heck, the new Indian group. I can't think of it. It's like Indush Shai, I think, or Shirai, something like that. They're really good. Those guys are going to do a great job. But they were supposed to have this huge storyline with them because right when the pandemic just hit, those boys jumped in and attacked Riddle because Pete wasn't able to get to the States because of the pandemic. But as the pandemic has obviously gone, longer than I think a lot of us, wanted, obviously hoped it would go. It's now we're in month 3 just about. But Matt Riddle got called up because of that, and I think people are getting a little flacky about that because they're like, does he really deserve it? And in my opinion, I think he does. I think he's one of those guys that you can, I would say in the next couple of years, he's going to be one of the faces of WWE.
I don't know why anyone would really say, does he deserve it? Because in my eyes, once you've essentially made it to NXT, you are deserving of being anywhere in WWE. Because once you make it there, you're under the WWE umbrella. And if you make it there,
I'll say this, not to cut you off. I think a lot of the fans out there, I think they're more just mad about him getting called up while other guys that have been in the indie circuit are getting let go. I think that's part of the frustrations, what I've kind of gotten the vibe from. But either way, I agree with you. I think Matt Riddle's just, I think he deserves it. He's been in NXT for a while, grinding out. And again, he's going to be a superstar, a mega superstar, I think.
Well, that brings a perfect segue to finish off our show this week because we are going to talk about some people, 2 people particularly, who have definitely, let's say, stuck around in NXT longer than any of us would have ever thought as we move into NXT TakeOver in your house this Sunday night. And the main event, I mean, it's two guys in a last chance backlot brawl for the NXT Championship. Velveteen Dream, Adam Cole. Do you see, first off, backlot brawl, that means that this is going to be another one of those cinematic pre-produced matches. The stipulation is if Velveteen Dream loses, he can no longer challenge for the NXT Championship, while Cole obviously would still be the champion. What do you see here? Do you see any of these guys finally? We've been talking about Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream forever. Who wins this match? Are either of them staying in NXT after this is over with? Are either of them, leaving NXT after this is over with? What's going on?
At first I thought Velveteen Dream is going to win this match. That was what I was thinking, because you know me, I'm a huge Dream fan. And I got I rep the authentic gear. I got one of the shirts in my closet. Huge fan, but I don't think they're gonna. I don't know. I think WWE is just gonna keep Adam Cole as champion. They were hyping it up for over a year, so I think they're gonna keep it on him. Selfishly, I want Dream to win, because later on when we get crowds back, I want Dream to get called up and get that crowd pop. And it's the same thing with Cole. I don't want him to get called up and there's no crowd, because I want to hear that pop when he comes up. So I think either way, I mean, if you're going to do it on storyline purposes, I think Dream would win. But I think what they're going to do is I think Cole's going to win. That's really what I think.
Do you think Cole is going to win so that Velveteen Dream will then obviously not challenge for the NXT Championship because he's going to make his way to the main roster?
I do. I think that's what's going to happen. But the issue I have with it is I don't want Dream to get called up and show up on a Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown with no fans, because there's so many people that have bought into his character, like myself. He's just a really interesting character, and I want the pop.
I kind of want, and I've said this for a while, selfishly, I want everything to just pretty much stay on pause. I want, like, any of the NXT takeovers I was supposed to go to in Tampa, I want those to still be in front of a large crowd someday, because I want to see Adam Cole one more time in NXT before he gets called up. I want to see Velveteen Dream in NXT before they get called up. And I would like to go attend those events or see them in front of a crowd. You know what I mean? I do eventually want them to get called up, but like selfishly, I just want everything to stand pause. I want a Drew McIntyre to not win the championship. I want a Matt Riddle to stay in NXT. I just selfishly wanted everything to just stay the way it was until crowds returned, and then we could pretty much pick up. But things are moving regardless. So I think Velveteen Dream's probably going to get the call up in front of no crowd. And Adam Cole, I mean, it's kind of strange. What does the future entail for Adam Cole?
He's done so much for NXT. He's been a champion for a long time. Yeah, I'll say this. I think he's getting the same treatment as Samoa Joe did for a long time, because Samoa Joe was down in NXT for way longer than he probably should have been. So I think Adam Cole is under that same treatment. But at the same time, I agree with you 110%. Why don't we just pause things? We can still have these storylines, but maybe save this Velveteen Dream Cole thing where the stipulation is, Velveteen Dream can't challenge for NXT title as long as Cole is the champion. Why don't we put that on pause, put that on hold and put it on the back burner until crowds start cycling back in? That's what I would have done. That's just me.
So we'll talk just a few other matches on this NXT card. There's 6 in total. Charlotte Flair defends her championship against the same lady she defended against at WrestleMania, Rhea Ripley. This time you also add Io Shirai to the mix, and Charlotte Flair leaving as the NXT champion. Is her whole NXT championship reign essentially taking place in front of no crowd? Or is she going to keep with the belt?
I'm going to say this. I think Io Shirai is going to win. I think she's been really over. I think at this point, I love her character. I mean, it's hard to say she's over, I guess. Let me rephrase that, because there's no crowds. But before the pandemic, you could tell the fans were really buying in on her gimmick, and I, as a wrestling fan, I've bought in on her gimmick and how she performs. She's one of the few wrestlers that I'm invested in on that side. I think she's really good, so I'm hoping she gets the title.
So we'll talk just one more other match on that card, and there's a few others. Obviously, Finn Balor is going to be on the card. Tommaso Ciampa versus Cross in his debut. But we'll talk Johnny Gargano versus Keith Lee, the North American Championship. Who's leaving with the North American Championship?
Johnny Gargano. Simple as that. I mean, I think Johnny's gonna get that title, and then I think Candice in a future date's going to be she's going to be the NXT Women's Champion, I think. And I think eventually you're just going to see them just keep moving up the ladder where they're quote unquote running the NXT product.
The McMahon-Helmsley era of NXT is going to be LaRue and Gargano. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yep. 100%.
All that I think about this whole weekend when it comes to this pay-per-view, one thing, I just asked WWE to do one thing. You got to have that old in-your-house set. Just got to have it. I mean, that's the whole point. What's the point of even calling this NXT in your house if you're not going to do the set? Because technically, I mean, that's kind of the funny thing. It takes me back to playing these video games back in the day. Why did we pick to play on certain pay-per-views on SmackDown 2 or SmackDown versus Raw or No Mercy for the N64? It was to see the sets. I mean, they were literally, why would you would pick your wrestlers and they'd be like, well, where do you want to wrestle? Why would you pick different events? Only because you'd want to wrestle with that set in the background. So technically the difference between, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn and NXT TakeOver in your house would be different sets. You know what I mean? Like, why would you call it in? So I'm just hoping we have that old house set where they come out through the garage door. I think that would be super cool. That's all I'm hoping for. As soon as if I have that, then whoever wins or loses, I'll probably be pretty happy regardless. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless because this is the NXT's first pay-per-view event since this whole pandemic thing started. Obviously, they scrapped TakeOver and they had a bunch of the matches just on the NXT Weekly show. So next week we'll talk all about that. We'll get ready for Backlash and the greatest wrestling match ever and anything else that seems to come up in the world of professional wrestling. For Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, you can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at KRockJared. Brandon, any parting thoughts heading into NXT in your house this weekend?
No, I'm just ready to see Karrion Kross handle his business. I think I'm just excited to see his gimmick just keep unfolding. And then we got to wait another week and then Last Ride. Can't wait for that.
Yes, a new episode of The Last Ride. Can't wait for that as well. It's unfortunate that we didn't have an episode this week, but ESPN's put out a 30 for 30 on Bruce Lee this week. That should be interesting nonetheless. I know he's not a wrestler, but kind of fits that mold of entertainer, athletic. We'll see what that entails. I'll watch that Bruce Lee documentary myself. Maybe we'll talk about that if it's interesting enough. But
I'm bored because I'm a Bruce Lee guy, man. So I'll be watching on Sunday as well.
All right, so that's going to do it for the Heel the Face podcast. We will talk to you next week.